This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Why, yes, oh, yes, oh, yes. Let us pick up those mics and get on with this thing. Folks in the chat room, if you wouldn't mind, would you let us know how we sound? My name is Chris.
I'm Bob.
And I'm Tony.
That's right, Tony's here today because Phil is out. And today we're talking about cooperative board games, how they work, mechanics that make them co-ops, and how we can relate them to RPGs and board games, of course. So, like I said, Phil's out of town. He's at a Project World in Orlando. I brought in Tony to give us a hand today. Bob is playing Phil. I am playing myself, and we are going to get on with this thing by saying, Bob, my friend, my companion, the ceviche to my Mexico. What is going on?
Everything's weird, man.
It's so weird.
I'm in the wrong chair.
Oh, God.
I'm like, what? I said Bob instead of Old Man Logan. I don't know where I am. I don't know what I'm doing.
It's weird for you. I'm on the other side of the screen.
Oh, I know, right?
Part of it is sleep deprivation, sort of, because I'm on week 3 of the night shift. Yeah. And week 3 is when it starts to get tough. Week 1 is the transition, like, I gotta say,
Yeah.
And week 2 is like, all right, I'm into the groove, everything's cool. And then week 3 is like, oh my God, when's this gonna be over? And then week 4 is like, kill me.
Just I want to die. And you have 6 of those weeks, don't you?
No, it's only 4.
Oh, that's good.
Thankfully, it's only 4. It used to be 3, and then they bumped it up to 4. But the tired kind of comes and goes, man. What else has been going on? I've been playing with the 3D printer. I 3D printed a set of tokens for Core Crisis. I've got fancy health counters for the players and robot tokens for the antagonists.
They're pretty awesome.
They look pretty slick. So that's fun. And now now that I've done that, because I wanted to kind of get that out of the way, now I'm going to play with the software, because there's other software than the stuff that comes with the printer, and it changes the firmware and lets you do different things. And everybody on the forums for the printer are like, oh, this stuff works way better. There's more options for, doing things and setting fiddly bits and things. And,
ooh, the fiddly bits. There's nothing better than setting the fiddly bits.
Yeah. So I'm going to dive into that at some point and hopefully not brick my printer. They say that you can put the old firmware back, so I trust them.
Well, that's good. I mean, it's just it's just software, right?
Yeah, it's just software.
And just rewrite that code.
But other than that, man, eat, sleep, work, and and watch stuff. I finished Young Justice.
Yeah.
And I moved on to Justice League Unlimited. And I'm most of the way through that now.
Did you like Young Justice?
Young Justice was good. Second season threw me because they made changes.
Like I said, about halfway through it gets better.
Halfway through it did get better, and I'm very excited for the new season when they finally put it out. So
it's gonna be great.
Well, there's a whole video game that was canon that nobody knew was canon in the middle there.
Really?
Yeah, season 1.5.
Oh, wow.
And that's like when people died, and you see new people in the Justice in the cave. You see new people dead in the cave.
In Happy
Happy Harbor.
Happy Harbor, yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened.
Mount Justice.
Wow, what game? What system is that game for?
Like PlayStation 1 or something.
Well, that means I could just go find an emulator. Not that I would ever do that, and then find a copy of that game. Not that I would ever do that and play it.
You would never do that.
Yeah.
Never. Tony, we're gonna totally do that later.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually think it was like on Xbox 360 or something.
Oh, so easy enough to go get our hands on, I suppose. Maybe. I'm not saying that you should. I'm just saying that you could.
We don't condone anything like
Nothing. The Misdirected Mark Podcast does not condone the opinions or actions of Chris Nizak.
Yeah.
So, hey, Tony, what's up with you, man?
I had a date night this week.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
How's your wife? Your wife, Jess?
Yeah, she's good. We're working on a baby. So
A second one or
Yeah.
the current one?
well, another one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're trying for a second. So that's been fun.
Are you going to stop it too? Because I hear like when you let them outnumber you, it gets bad.
Yeah. Well, that's where we're not arguing. That's where we're arguing about.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. Where she wants 3, and I didn't want to have any to begin with. So
How's so 2's like a compromise, right?
2's a compromise.
Yeah, I feel like that's the way that you should go then.
Yeah. It'd be great if I could stop, but it's just not going to happen.
How's Lincoln? By the way, Lincoln, for everybody who doesn't know, Lincoln is Tony's son.
Yeah, otherwise known as the Drizzler.
The Drizzler.
Drizzler.
He is our tiny little rainmaker.
Nice.
Um,
That's great.
yeah. And he's pretty good. He's a small monster who's learning how to manipulate and control people and levitate things, all that kind of stuff.
Like little kids do.
Like little kids do.
Yeah, levitate things.
I'd be worried about the levitation, but
Yeah.
I feel like that's a normal part of growing up, right?
Yeah. Well, he's getting into his training psionics manual.
Yeah, that's good.
And, yeah.
Did you buy him the 3.5 version or the old 2nd edition?
We're trying out 5th edition. We're seeing where this goes.
There's no psionics in 5th edition yet.
There's no. Then I got a ripoff.
Yeah, or you got an advanced copy that you should loan me.
he's getting information from the future.
Yeah. What year is it? Am I supposed to have this cell phone right now?
Yeah, probably not. It's
Where's my cassette deck?
I mean, maybe Wally West ran back in time and gave it to you. It's possible.
Wally West isn't a.
Could have been Bart.
He's not a thing. Never mind.
Before we move on, I'm being told that we may be a little low, so you might want to just take the main and bring it up a little.
Here you go, everybody. Hopefully that helps with the stream.
And I'll give that a try over here.
Yeah. All right. Anybody want to ask me? I feel lonely over here.
That's
No.
the next thing on the list.
No, Chris.
Yeah.
We don't care about you. No.
Yeah. Wow.
Chris.
Phil, they're all fired. You can come back anytime, man.
What's going on with you, Chris?
What's going on? Okay, I won't sing. So I was at a catacon this past weekend, which ends my my 2 weeks of being at conventions constantly. Thank God. It's actually rather straining and tiring.
A little bit.
Considering the fact that I drove 10 hours to Wisconsin and back, which was great because I was with Sean and that was fun. And then I drove 6 hours to a catacon and back with Phil and Nikki, and we picked up Sundown on the way, which was cool. And then back with Nikki, so that was a nice, pleasant experience. We stopped at a couple of game stores on the way back, and that was a lot of fun. There's this really cool game store in Dayton, Ohio. In Columbus, Ohio, and I can't remember the name of it. And I had the card, and I swear to God, next week I will bring it. But they had a huge selection. They had a demo section that had well over 200 games in it that you can pick out and play, including a lot of new stuff, like the new Pyramid Arcade from Looney Labs is there. What a great game store. I'll talk more about a catacon next week when Phil is back, because we'll both talk about it together. I've been doing a bunch of encoded and misdirected mark stuff since before I went and after I came back. So, Down with D&D was yesterday. I've been working on some new things that me and John Arcadian and with Gnome Tracy Barnett, we're starting to put together some stuff too. So to do through encoded designs, which I will be talking about in the future, but it's really in the early stages right now, so I don't want to talk about it too much.
Cool.
The Paranoia Plots is to layout. So that book is in Tim and John's capable hands, and hopefully that'll be done very soon, within the next week or two. Yeah, that's what I've been doing. I got to play Satanic Panic. That was fun.
Awesome.
Yeah. With McClure. McClure ran it. But like I said, I'll talk more about a catacon next week. That's really all I've been doing. Just, writing and looking for a job as fast as I can. That's a thing. So that's fun. All right. Before we move on to the garage, where we're going to talk about co-op games, the Encoded Inkwell has put out 2 new pieces. So there's a block castle piece, which is beautiful. It could be used as a card back. You can pick that up on Drive-Thru RPG. I highly suggest it. At least going to take a look at it. It's lovely. And then there's also a set of astral bodies. So these are all colored pieces, and they're all by Matt Morrow, and they're all beautiful. And they're stock art, so you can buy them and use them for whatever, if you're a publisher or if you're just, trying to get some cool stuff together for your game. Like at a catacon, I saw that John had taken the astral bodies and blown them up and put them out for his Tarrasque game, the terrible Tarrasque game where you are just trying to kill a Tarrasque in like a circus type situation, a gladiatorial circus type situation, for the cleric or whoever that could cast giant growth or whatever it was on a person. So it's pretty neat. It's pretty beautiful. I would highly suggest going to check it out. All right, we're going to take a walk over to the garage. Gentlemen, let's do that thing.
Access granted.
Doubled out right there, because apparently we both did it at the same time. Since we have a new soundboard, playing with new things.
I built it.
Yeah, Tony built us a secondary soundboard in case my iPad ever broke or ran out of juice, like it's going to in about 30 minutes. Today we're talking about co-op games. This is a category of games that uses a variety of mechanics from other places to create a play experience that is fairly universal. We're going to talk about how they work in general, games that use them, break it down from those examples, talk a little bit about the play experience, hit some of the problems that can arise with playing cooperative board games and other cooperative games, and finish with how they can and are used in role-playing games. So we're gonna leave out the one versus many kind of games like Descent or like the Imperial Assault or Mansions of Madness. Well, New Mansions of Madness uses the app, so that actually fits in there. But I don't want to talk about that today. That those kind of games today, and also games with the trader mechanic like Shadows over Camelot and Battlestar Galactica. Is that okay, gentlemen?
Sounds good.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about how they work. So Bob, what are some of the pieces for how these games work?
Well, first off, you're attempting to achieve a goal collectively.
Yes,
That's the whole point of a co-op.
Sure is. Usually, and pretty much every time, the game is working against you. So there's no player working against you; it's just the game that's working against you with its mechanics.
Yeah, and you have a limited time or resource quite often.
Yeah, and these can be fixed or variable. Sometimes it's time that is ticking down in a very predictable fashion. Sometimes it is a deck of cards that is running out. Sometimes it is a doom track that is increasing, depending on what pops up. Make sense?
Yes.
All right.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Bump Tony up a little.
Sure, I can always bump Tony up a little. It's done.
Next to the bump.
Yeah, now you're loud.
Okay.
All right. So that's pretty much how they work. And the thing is like those are ideologies, right? Like they're not necessarily mechanics, but the mechanics of these games is very varied depending on how they work with what they put in it. It's like some of them can be dice games, some of them can be deck builders. Like I said, there's the exploratory, solve problems before a bad thing happens. That's a lot of the Arkham games work that way. Like you have to like close X amount of gates before the doom track fills up, stuff like that. So the mechanics in these games range all over the place. But let's talk about a few games that use them. Bob, we're actually designing a game right now that uses this called Core Crisis.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Core Crisis has a fixed time limit.
Yes, it does because of the cards.
Yep. There are blockers in the way of the goal.
So those are robots that get dropped down. So you can't move past them or do usually things with them in the way because if you do, then you take damage.
Yep. We have randomized complications.
So we have a deck of cards that we flip. That is part of that timer, that fixed timer that has symbols on it that do different things depending on which core you're using.
And you have a limited range of actions.
Yeah, because that is the limiting factor for what you can do as a player in that game. Right?
Yep.
All right. Another game is Mice and Mystics. So Mice and Mystics feels a lot like Descent or Imperial Assault, games like that. It's by Plaid Hat Games. There is a clock, an hourglass on that counts down, and if that ever reaches or counts up, and if it ever reaches where the storybook, the end is, then you have lost that mission, and you'd have to start over. So it's a time thing. There's randomizers that get in the way. Like every time you enter an area, there's an encounter card that you can sometimes flip depending on if the story says to flip a random card or not, an encounter card or not. And they have, depending on what page you're on, different types of encounters, like the amount of creatures that you have to deal with or the types of creatures that you deal with. There are choice points in that game, too, that you have to choose from because it's got an ongoing campaign play to it, too. So there are times where you can go like up into the kitchen to help Miss Maggie, which will help you later if you do that, or you could just skip that encounter if you feel like you're running out of time, but then you don't have that for later. So
cool.
that is an interesting co-op space and interesting rule in a co-op because of that that choice in board games. Like it's not something that you're usually used to seeing in a board game.
Yep. Pandemic. Pandemic has got an interesting thing to it that we like to call the constant assault.
Yeah. So, do you want to explain what the constant assault is?
I think you could do it better.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. It is that no matter what you do, you are constantly being bombarded by the game. Like in Pandemic, no matter what you do, you're always flipping more cards to bring out more disease, and that's what I mean by the constant assault. And those epidemic cards, which are randomizers in the deck, you know how many of them are in there, but you don't necessarily know exactly when they're coming up. When one comes up, it reshuffles it and then gives you more of that assault because it's going back at places that you've already tried to clear out. So that if you haven't gotten them cleared out, then they're just going to keep stacking up on top of each other.
Yeah, it's a never-ending cycle of bombardment against the players.
Yeah, it's to build that tension and that feel of impending doom and dread, which is another thing that comes up in a lot of co-op games. You see that in Arkham. You see that, just games like that. What's another thing that Pandemic's got going for it?
Pandemic has the thing with player roles, where each player has a distinct thing that they are better at than the other players.
Yes.
Each player has their the same actions that they can take, and it's got a limited action economy, but the individual roles take one of those actions usually, and they give it a boost so that one person is better at it than the rest.
That is true. That is true. And you can see that in a lot of co-op games. Mice and Mystics has that with the character that you're playing. They're better at certain things than others. The Time Stories, which we're going to talk about in a second, does that. The Arkham games do that too.
Yeah.
Forbidden Island, Forbidden Desert, which are by Leacock, also do that also. Another game is Hanabi. So Hanabi is a card game. It's a little different from all these other co-ops that we were talking about, because Hanabi, you get dealt a hand of cards, and they're faced backwards from you, so you can't actually see your own hand, and everybody else can see your hand, and you're trying to, on your turn, play cards out that will will create the sets that you're trying to make. So that is an imperfect information game, which is a different kind of mechanic to use in co-op. The reason I bring it up is because it shows that there are other ways to create co-op situations without having the mechanics that we've already talked about before, which are a little similar in a lot of ways. The Pandemic, the Mice and Mystics, that one against many, or that one against the game kind of feel. That has that constant assault. So the other thing with Hanabi is that you only have X amount of cards of each suit in the game. So if you screw up too many times, then those cards aren't there anymore, and you've lost. So you can't. I mean, there's just a point in that game where you just can't win anymore. Like, the resources have run out on you, because the cards that you can draw and play are the ones that are that resource. So Time Stories is a fairly new. In like Mice and Mystics and Time Stories, they feel a lot like role-playing games in a lot of ways, or story games. Time Stories is actually more like a story game than a role-playing game, where Mice and Mystics is more like a role-playing game than a story game, in that role-playing story game idea, like the games that we like to play a lot of. So Time Stories, you embody a person in a different time period, and while you're doing that, you're trying to solve a mystery, but you only have so much time, and there's actually a counter that counts down on a track. And as you move around the board, it counts down. And when you're moving from location to location, you roll a die and it moves down. And sometimes when you stay in a location, too long, or when you stay in a location and take actions, it moves down. So everything is about you are spending time to get more information to try to solve the mystery before the timer runs out. That is that game in a nutshell. And it's all story. Like, you're actually looking at the pictures and the cards for clues. You're getting information from the cards by flipping them over and looking for clues. That's how that game plays. And each one is fairly unique and interesting. I mean, it's got a weird thing where you can only really play it once. I mean, you can play it over. You actually play it over and over again until you solve it. Because if you run out of time, you have to start over. But at least you have all that information that you had before. Like, you get sent back to the future and you have to go back. You don't score as well, and your boss yells at you, which is hilarious when the cards yell at you. Oh man, it's so funny. But that game, once you play through one of the expansions once and you figure out what the mystery is, it's not really a thing that you can play again, which is one of the knocks on it. But I think it's a brilliant design, and it's a very different kind of co-op, because it's that almost escape room-esque feel to it.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a shame that it doesn't have the replayability, because the replayability, for me at least, and I know a lot of people would agree, that's one of those factors that gets you into purchasing a game, because you know you can play it over and over and over again, and especially if it's a game that costs a little money. If it's a dirt cheap game, then, if it's a one-off, okay, cool, that was a fun experience, I'm glad I played it. But if it's something that's, like $40, you start going, do I want to play it once? And
it's true. That's the biggest argument about that game. Like, was it worth it to buy it? I mean, we've played 3 expansions plus the one that it comes with, and I've had a really good time with it. It is an interesting space for game creation, and it's unique that way. Like, I don't know of anything else that really exists out there that's like, it's like those little choose your own adventures, but a co-op. It's a co-op choose your own adventure in a lot of ways.
Now, the thought that's running through my head is it's taking it and seeing if you could hack it to increase replayability.
Yeah, right. Like, I don't know how you do that, because you'd have to. I mean, once you play it once, you'll see like how it is. Like, these are crafted mysteries. Yeah. And the clues that are built into them are like art clues at times. Like, you have to like once you know the mystery, like, you don't have to. It's not hard to figure it out anymore.
Yeah.
One of the last ones I wanted to talk about was the Arkham games. So those are Elder Sign, Arkham Horror, and Eldritch Horror. Now, you've played Eldritch Horror with me before.
I have. Yeah. I've played Arkham Horror as well.
And you've probably played Relic. What's the dice one that I just said that I'm blanking on now?
Elder Sign.
Elder Sign, yeah.
Yes, I have played that, yeah.
So those also have that constant assault feel to them. Like, you're just getting bombarded by the game as hard as the game can
Yeah.
by the randomizers that pop up. And they have those unknown complications. Like you flip a card at the end of every turn or at midnight on Elder Sign, and you don't know what's going to happen next. Maybe it's not so bad. Maybe it's terrible. And there's like 3 more monsters on there. Maybe a gate explodes. It depends on what's going on in the game. And they have that symbol system too. Like that's where I got the idea for Core Crisis from. Was that they're the symbol systems that exist in Arkham Horror at least. Yeah, and that's like you have the character roles in that game too. You're working together. You're either running around a city, around the world, or around a library. And if you have the app version of Elder Sign, then you can run around Egypt and the South Pacific.
Nice.
So that's a good app. I highly suggest getting it.
I'm personally a big fan of the random complication.
Me too.
I love the fact that something's going to happen, and you have no idea what it's going to be, and it may be horrible. It may be, oh, that hurt, but it didn't hurt that bad, and it just adds a whole nother dimension to the game.
Well, it's that tension, right?
Yeah.
It's that thing that Pandemic doesn't. Pandemic has it in the Epidemic cards.
Yeah, because you don't know when they're going to show up.
Correct. But it doesn't
you don't
have
know where they're going to impact you.
Yeah, because you don't know where. But the Arkham games, you don't know what.
Yeah.
Yeah. One is you don't know when. The other one is you don't know what.
Yeah.
And that's two very different things.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So those are some of the games that incorporate them, and we wanted to bring those up because it talks about a lot of the mechanics and the variety of mechanics that can appear in them. So let's break down what you actually need for a role play or for a co-op game to actually function. And I'm going to do this, Bob.
Uh-huh.
You going to break it down for me, Mixmaster Everson?
Yeah, I don't do it as well as Phil.
Mixmaster Ceviche?
Yeah, ceviche. Yo. And I will never do that again, I promise.
Oh, man.
Ouch. Yes. I think I hurt Tony. You need a goal. You have to have a goal. If you're going to have a co-op game, you're cooperating to do something.
Yeah, sure. So let's take a game. Core Crisis, what are you trying to do?
You're trying to stop the core from running rampant and taking over.
Yeah, because if it does, you die.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's Pandemic. You're trying to cure the diseases.
Yep.
Right. Like that is the goal. Hanabi, you're trying to get those sets of fireworks together so that they don't blow up. All right. Another one. The game has some force that is arrayed against the goal. Like that is the other side of it,
You
right?
have obstructions.
Yes, you have obstructions. So what is it for Core Crisis?
You have robots.
Yep, the robots get in the way.
The robots get in the way. The robots hurt you.
You need to get those codes to get through the door. So there's that. You need to break down the shield that's inside of there that's protecting the core.
Yep.
And then you need to hack the core.
Yep.
Like those are, and the robots are in the way too. In Time Stories, it's that timer. Like you only it's the mystery because you don't know what you're trying to do. That's actually the game. Like you get thrown back in time with very few hints, and then you have to start solving a mystery. That is the game, and that is the obstruction, and time is against you. So you only have X amount of time to solve the mystery. Mice and Mystics, it is whatever the mission is. So that's a very mission-based game, and every goal switches from chapter to chapter. So that is and of course the forces in there are all the things that we talk about. There's the time, there's the enemies that are in the way that are trying to kill you or capture you anyway. There is and all the other story complications that come up, which is built into the system that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for instance, in Mice and Mystics, there's a wheel that is a cheese wheel, and when the cheese wheel fills up, you get a burst, a monster appears on the thing, or some bad thing happens. Now that cheese wheel only fills up when dice are rolled because there's a cheese symbol, and when the monsters or the bad guys or the antagonists are rolling dice because they roll dice to defend, when they roll cheese, you put more cheese in the wheel. So managing the cheese wheel is a thing. If you can, some characters can, but not everybody can. So, like I said, when that's another complication. That's another thing that hinders you from completing what you do. Because when that thing blows up, that timer that I talked about moves up a page, and something bad happens.
Nice.
All right. What's another thing?
The mechanics of the game should make these two parts interact with each other.
Yeah, we just talked about a little bit of that stuff. So, a Pandemic, right? Like you're trying to get cures, and you get cures by collecting sets of cards.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that you need to do is keep the diseases down, because if they blow up too many times or they spread too much, then you lose.
Yep.
So those are the game is trying to infect everything.
Yes.
You're trying to cure them in one way, while also keeping all the diseases down in another.
Keep them at bay.
Yeah.
And cure them and stay alive.
Yeah. Well, you don't really die in that game.
No, you don't die.
Unless you're playing Pandemic Legacy, which we won't talk about that because there might be still people out there who haven't played Pandemic Legacy. Yeah, so that's how those two things interact. Like, there's the goal that has a certain set of mechanics in Pandemic, and then there's the game which is trying to do a certain thing, and you can take action to do that. So you have to decide which actions are you going to spend your actions on. Like, are you going to manage the board, or are you going to try to get a cure? And you're trying to do both of those at the same time.
Yep.
So that's the kind of interaction that I'm talking about. The Arkham games are the same way. Because of that constant assault thing, monsters are a lot like the disease. When too many monsters or too many gates open, things get really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another thing that happens. And then the Doom track fills up faster. Like, there's multiple ways to lose these games, usually. Yeah, the time stories, like I talked about, the time track. Like, everything you do costs time. And the way that you lose that game is when you run out of time. So that's how those two things. You have to make efficient choices and think about what you're doing.
Yeah.
All right. So then other mechanics. There's the player's roles. Like, that's a thing that generally happens in co-ops. Not every co-op, but most of them, right? Hanami doesn't have that, but Pandemic does. How do... Bob is editing the document as we're talking because I wrote the wrong version of roles down because I was typing it quickly. Tony, you brought up a thing to me because you've done a lot of work with especially kids with video games, especially kids who are on the spectrum or kids who have mental handicaps. And you've also done other psychological work and other things with video games. What is unfair advantage?
So unfair advantage, the way we explored it is when one player has more power than everyone else, and then they become the antagonist for everyone. So a team forms around that and then attacks that person. What we played was Halo, and we were playing in a custom version of zombie mode, I think, where one person has, like, god powers, kills everyone in 3 hits or something like that. And then everyone else, it was a free play event, and then everyone ended up turning into a team and then ganging up on that one person, so becoming that antagonist, essentially becoming the game. So they built the game around that. It was just a free play event, and it turned into that.
Well, the mechanic then is that you give one person or the game all the power, and it's on everybody else to defeat that person.
Yeah, you make one person the man.
Mm-hmm. And then have everybody beat down on the man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the man, of course, we mean like the colloquial or the man, capital man.
Yeah. And then whoever kills it and rips off their head becomes the Highlander. So.
Oh, well,
because
there
there can be only one.
Because there can be only one.
Because there can be only one.
So, like I said, you could translate that into a board game into a board game co-op by having the game have the one powerful the man, and then have everybody else try to use their actions, abilities, whatever, to deal with the man before that board game kills you. Like, yeah, okay. So that's another way to approach it. That's another breakdown of it. Is there anything else we missed? I'm sure there is.
There probably is. I can't think of anything at the moment, but I think we pretty much hit the high points.
Yeah. Let's go to the chat room for life and see what they have to say. Anybody saying anything?
Folks are chattering. Was sent out of town. Doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of chat room stuff. There was a good 10-minute chunk with like nothing being said, and actually people were concerned that it might be down.
Is it down?
It is not down.
Oh, okay.
So shame on Senda for not being here.
No, that's okay. She's at a work conference thing.
Yeah, she said she was working or something.
Yeah.
And then we had some things sparking up about Extenabre.
That's Brandon.
Yep, Brandon. There we go. Have you guys had any experience with the fighting fantasy books? Kind of like Choose Your Own Adventure, but with character stats, dice rolls, and I think some are for 2 people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they are. Yeah, I know exactly what they are. I used to own one of them or 2 of them, but it was when I was much, much younger. Like, I remember playing them, though. They were really fun.
I don't remember those. But
really?
Then again, I'm older than everybody, so that may have been outside of my scope of influence.
Maybe.
The visual.
It's very possible. Okay, well, if the chat room is, doing chat room things, we'll just move on then.
Oh, Nikki is still mad at you for not telling her about Minneapolis. That there were a bunch of things there, including the Fantasy Flight game store that was there that she didn't get a chance to visit.
Of course she's still angry at me. That makes perfect sense. It's fine.
Yeah, I just didn't want to skip over anything important.
Yeah,
because I thought that might be vital.
It's kind of, yeah, that's fine. You can troll me. It's cool. I'm good with that. All right, so let's talk about the play experience that co-op games create.
Well, first of all, you've got table talk.
Yeah, we're chatting
It's
with
a
each
co-op.
other. It's a
So
co-op.
if you're cooperating with each other, you probably should be talking things out.
Yeah, and that is so like there are times that I've played Dominion, which is a deck builder, where I don't talk to anybody. I don't have to. There are times when I play Splendor where I don't have to talk to anybody because I don't have to because
Yep.
they don't. Those games don't encourage that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But co-ops completely encourage table talk. In fact, if you're not talking to each other or communicating with each other, because some co-ops are, I can't think of one. I know there's a couple out there where sometimes you can't talk to each. Oh, the Grizzled is a co-op.
Yes.
Yeah, the Grizzled's a great little co-op. I
Yep.
love that game. It's a World War I co-op, but you can get a debility where you can't talk to anybody. You can't communicate anymore. And that makes that game a lot harder, actually.
The Dresden Files cooperative card game.
Ah,
It's
yes.
co-op, but it limits the amount of information that you can share with the other players.
Yeah,
you
'cause-
can't spell it out specifically. Like, I have a card that will do X amount of damage at this range. You can't literally give all the information. You can be vague about it,
Yeah.
but you still cooperate with each other
Like you
to
can say,
achieve the goal.
you can say, I can probably handle this. I can probably handle that, but
Yeah.
you're not sure what anybody has, so you're not sure how many fate points it'll cost you, which could
Exactly.
be problematic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's imperfect information, right?
Yep.
I like when co-op games create imperfect information because it limits a problem that will cause about later.
It's a challenge.
Yeah, and that leads right into it's a game about working together.
Yep.
Because I mean, there are games like that have teams and whatnot where you're working together and whatnot, but it's never everybody working together because there's nothing antagonistic about anything in a co-op usually. I mean, there are when you start having those trader mechanics and whatnot, but we're not talking about games that have that right
Yeah.
now. So that is another thing that these games they drive that, and they do that with their mechanics too. Because, like when you have a player role, that's like, well, I can move you on my turn.
Mm-hmm.
That gives you options that you didn't have, and lets you plan out things and communicate, and be like, well, you go here, and I'll get you the rest of the way on my turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's so stuff like that. What's another one?
There's cooperative analysis.
So this goes along with the talking thing, right?
Yeah.
Like we can actually look at the board together and be like, how do we solve this problem?
Yeah.
That's a thing that doesn't happen in like every other board game, or even a lot of. I mean, that happens in role playing games, but even then in role playing games, it doesn't happen all that often because, I mean, we're telling stories, right? It's not cooperative analysis unless we're playing a really tactical, like 4th edition style game. So that is to me, that's a really fun part of co-ops.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really enjoy that about time stories because we're trying to solve this mystery with the clues that we have arrayed, and we communicate and we tell each other about the clues. That's another one that has the imperfect information thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're on a location, you can look at the back of a card. If you're not, you can't see that card.
Gotcha.
So you have to depend on somebody else to tell you what they saw on the back of that card or what they read on the back of that card. And they're not supposed to read it to you.
Right. They have to give it from their perspective.
Correct.
And if they're one of those people that reads it and doesn't have a perfect memory and they paraphrase and they kind of get it wrong.
Or they don't explain it really well. Like communication is a big part of that. And then that cooperative analysis is another thing that goes along. Like, well, what do our clues all mean together? Like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Arkham Horror, when you look at the board and you're like, well, things are going terribly wrong. What is our plan of action together?
Yeah. What's the best way that we can manage this shitstorm?
Yeah, exactly. And lastly, at least from our opinion, is that they mostly create a social atmosphere of cooperation to achieve a goal. So, I mean, it's social.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, games don't, like I said, that Dominion thing, like, that wasn't social. I've played that game where it's not social. It's just playing the game.
Yeah.
I've played a lot of board games that have kind of that to it. Like Puerto Rico doesn't need to be a social thing, right? Like, I like Euros. They don't necessarily need to be social.
Yeah, a lot of them have a play style that it really encourages you to play everything close to the vest and not, chatter amongst each other because you're focusing on what's going on and building your strategy and if you're off over here chatting with Susie while you're playing, you're not going to be focusing on what you're doing, and unless you're one of those people that's really good at multitasking in a situation like that, you're probably not going to be playing as well as you could play.
Exactly.
So if you're there to win the game,
yes,
not so good.
Not so good. Also, because it's an atmosphere of cooperation, there's none of that bluffing or because I like playing bluffing games too, right?
Sure.
Like, I like social manipulation games also. like Werewolf, because Werewolf's a very social game, but it is not a. I mean, that is an antagonistic
Not so much
game.
co-op.
Yeah, it's an antagonistic game for sure. I mean, we're talking about murdering people.
Yeah.
It's kind of a co-op.
Except it's team based. It's like some versus many.
Yeah.
Right.
But that gets back to unfair advantage. That's exactly what that was.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, that unfair advantage thing, you can change it as long as you turn the person who has the unfair advantage into the game. Like the game is actually the one that has the thing that has the unfair advantage. All right, so that is the play experience that they create. It's a much more social thing, and there's a lot of other kinds of experiences that you can garner from that. But those are the things that I think make a co-op a co-op. Does anybody have any thoughts on that before we move on? No?
Nah.
That's okay. We could just move on right to the problems that they cause. So the big one for me is that alpha gamer issue.
Yeah.
Where one person just takes over and tells everybody else what to do.
That is, I've seen that a lot in cooperative games where that one person is very strategic and has a dominant personality and starts going like, oh, hey, we're playing Pandemic and we're going to, if you go over here and then you go over here and then I go over here and then we can nail this thing down and da-da-da-da. And they can steal the focus from other players. They can dominate. They can, it's not fun.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, it's not fun when somebody tries to tell everybody else what to do.
That's why I like those games that have that imperfect information that only certain people have access to.
Yeah.
Because that encourages that communication between players.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of my biggest problems with Pandemic. Like, I don't like when we play Pandemic and we all lay our cards on the table. It bothers me because once you do that, I look at the table.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at the game, and I used to be prone to doing that, and now when people ask me my opinion, I'm like, I don't want to tell you because I want you to make the choice because that's why we're playing this game.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want my opinion, you can ask for it, but well, you could do this, this, and this, and this is why I think that, and it's usually probably pretty close to being accurate.
And that's the flip side to the alpha gamer problem. If it's one thing for somebody to be dominating and telling people what to do, but it's completely different if you're sitting there and you're not sure what to do and you're just like, hey, it's a co-op. Source the table.
I'll put your hands on your head and bump the mic.
Source the table and say, hey, I need to get a little help because I'm not sure what the best move is here, and I feel like I don't want to screw this one up because this one's important or whatever, And sourcing the table for help is perfectly fine because it's a co-op.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what's another problem that these games cause?
They can feel like puzzles that you don't need multiple people to play with.
They really do play that way sometimes. Like, I know Jane Calvert, who runs and plays a lot of Arkham Horror, will play that game by herself. Mm-hmm. And you can. It's perfectly viable to play that game by yourself.
Absolutely.
It's also really fun to play it with other people.
Yeah.
But you don't need to. Right? Like, and that's because it's got that puzzly feel. Like, you can just look at it and puzzle it out. It's another thing with Pandemic. Like, I could play 3-player Pandemic by myself if I wanted to.
Sure.
I mean, it's more fun with other people, but that's why when I eventually get to those games that have, like I said, that imperfect information, those are the ones that I enjoy the most because I have to play them with other people.
Yeah.
So another one is it can feel like the randomness of the game is more important than any decision you might make, because that happens in some co-ops. Like, the game is just going to brutalize you no matter what you do. Perfect example is that what's that Apocalypse Chaos or whatever.
Apocalypse Chaos.
Man, that game is like, unless we're playing it wrong, that game is stupid hard.
Yeah.
It's like a little tower defense game for those folks out there that don't know what I'm talking about. And we've never even come close to winning like the first mission.
It's harsh. It really is.
Super harsh. And it feels like there's nothing you can do to stop it. And sometimes Pandemic can feel that way too. Like, just get a couple bad flips of the cards.
Oh, yeah. We've had a couple of games
dead.
of Pandemic that I've been in where we got blown out. It was a 4 or 5 player game, and we got blown out on the first time around the table. Mm-hmm. And it was like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah. Sometimes the cards will get you, like, right? And I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing. I don't like that. I'm not sure if it's completely a bad thing, but the games can sometimes feel that way, right? That randomness just takes away the idea of it being actually a game where your decisions matter.
Yeah, it's harsh. I personally, I like the fact. Let me put it this way. Pandemic was the first game that I ever played that I enjoyed losing. We lost the game the very first time we ever played it. We lost, but it was fun. And we were cooperating and trying to solve this problem, and it was, it was very enjoyable. And I was like, and subsequent times through, we've won, we've lost, we've won, we've lost. And Pandemic was the first game that I ever played where I enjoyed losing, which is, some games, like Monopoly, you don't like to lose. Nobody likes to lose
nobody likes to lose
Come
Monopoly.
on.
Well, there's that whole idea that you've lost together, right?
Yeah.
Or you've lost because it's actually not your fault. The game just got you.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and like you said, that's a preference thing. Like,
Yeah.
to me, I will play those games and I will enjoy them, but they're not my favorites.
Yeah.
So those are some of the problems that if there are other problems that people have with cooperative games, I would like to hear them, because those are the three that we could figure out together. And
Yeah.
I'd like to hear more of
notes
them.
up in the chat room.
Yeah.
And
Specifically, when you're designing a board game like this, I kind of think you have to figure out what the human player brings to the table. Because if you can just play it with robots, then play it with robots.
yeah.
That's a good point. That's that whole puzzle thing for me. Like,
Yeah.
if it's just a puzzle and I don't need somebody else to talk to about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, all the problems that we're addressing, the alpha gamer issue, the puzzle, the randomness, that all has to do with the human machine. So it's the problem is that the people who are playing it are people.
Yeah.
And so if we take that element out, then the game works fine. It works like it's supposed to. The most logical choice is made every time.
Yeah. But isn't that like every board game? Like, if you can find the most logical choice to make every time, then you're probably going to play it well, especially Euros. But I like playing Euros.
Sometimes.
I mean, it's like chess, right? I mean, we still like playing chess. People like playing chess.
People, yeah.
Some people,
I've
heard tell of people who like playing chess.
I like playing chess.
I personally don't like the game, but I don't like that brand of complexity.
Yeah, I'm not any good at chess, but I like abstract board games.
I just think it needs an update.
Well, it's been updated many times over the thousands of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, maybe they should just a second edition chess would be nice.
It'd be like 12th edition chess at this point. Maybe 50th edition chess.
I just think, why squares?
All right. Well, now let's talk about how to use some of these ideas in co-op board games and RPGs. So, Bob, give me one.
Well, you've got the idea of time being arrayed against you.
Yes. I think, for me at least, this is the most important thing that I learned about role-playing games from cooperative board games or from board games in general. This idea of time. So, the thing that we hardly ever use in role-playing games is that time. Like, that time pressure. And I think it's the most, like I said, one of the most important things you can drop in there. And there are multiple ways that you can do it, too. I've used Doom tracks. So, for instance, in a 4th edition game I was running, they were running through a tower. And there was this energy that was building up. And I put a Doom track on a whiteboard. And every 5 minutes, because it's how long it took to take a short rest, I would mark off a square on the Doom track going up. Now, they could mess with the crystals when they found them that were channeling this energy and either halt or move the Doom track back, so they could actually interact with that mechanic. And it was outside of the bounds of 4th edition, but it was within the strictures of the time slots of 4th edition. So, like, every 5 minutes and every 3 encounters is what I did. So, like, in every 3 encounters, I considered 5 minutes of playtime, and every 5 minutes or whatever the short rest was one of those ticks on the clock. And it was really good. Like, it created that tension that you get in those kind of games. And that's a thing that doesn't happen all that often in role-playing games, I think. People forget about it.
Yeah, and I have to agree, when you know that time is against you, it's not on your side, it adds an element that ratchets up the tension.
Mm-hmm.
It emphasizes the importance of what's going on. It adds a whole nother dimension to it.
It really does.
And I like when Phil will do that when he runs a game. He started using the big 6-sider.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, the 6-sider would come out on the table. And
Was
it's
that,
like,
was that him or was that me?
he was doing that before I met you.
Oh, okay.
So where he got it, I don't remember, but I'm sure there's a Gnome Stew article about it
Probably.
somewhere.
I'm sure there is.
But yeah, the first time he ever did that, and then it's like, we're doing some stuff, and then he goes, whoop, and he flips it to another face, and we're like, crap.
Yeah. things are going poor. Time, it just keeps on ticking. So that's one. Limited resources has always been a part of RPGs, and how far you can go before you need to resupply. So that is, I mean, we can go right back to the old school Renaissance and old first edition D&D. I mean, it was, let's go into a dungeon, and then at some point we should probably stop and go out of the dungeon.
Yeah.
But they always had that random encounter mechanic.
Yep.
So you had to figure out if you've spent enough of your resources and how far you've gone, because every X amount of feet you have to roll a d6, and if a 6 is rolled, or a 1, I can't remember which, you run into something.
Yeah.
And that could kill you because you don't have the resources at your disposal that you want.
Yep.
So that's been a part of the game for a long time, but they've kicked it up a lot in recent years. Like, we talk about encumbrance being silly, this, that, and the other thing, but like Torchbearer has those slot systems. Like, here's the stuff that you can carry, and there's other games that have that stuff these days too. Dungeon World has load, which is equal to your strength modifier, I believe, and plus some number, so you can only carry that much stuff with you that matters at that point in time. In fact, we had to buy a cart and a pony one time so we could carry the rations with us that we needed so we could survive a long journey. Like, that was a thing that happened.
Yep.
So that limited resources is another part of role-playing games where co-ops can really influence. And a lot of these co-op games, I think, were greatly influenced by role-playing games anyway. Like, that whole idea of roles in games.
Yeah.
Like, roles in games is essentially role-playing games. Like, is an
like
essential
having a character class.
It's having a character class. It's exactly what it is. The things that you can do that are better than everybody else. So, I mean, some of the stuff's already in there, but that idea of time, I think, is one of the most important things, at least to reinforce, like, here are other ways that we can do it. Like, it's cool to have a track that people can see. Like, you only have X amount of time, and you know that when you do things, it costs you time.
Yep.
If there are other things out there, people in listener land, that you've thought of concerning cooperative board games and how they can relate to role-playing games, I would love to hear it. I like imperfect information. I mean, a lot of times we do that thing, though, right? Like, where we have the scenes play out, though. So it's harder to have that because we don't want to have the recaps.
Yeah.
But sometimes people take people in other rooms, and that's a perfectly fine way to play too. And I think that's, if you're going to do that's a great time to use that imperfect information type stuff.
You can inject that into the game as the GM too. For example, the maps for the Eerie Peaks
That will be coming out. Yeah.
You've got here's a map. It was drawn by an adventurer who went through the Eerie Peaks, and they drew a map of what they encountered and what they saw. And that's from their perspective.
Yep.
You have no idea how accurate that map is.
That's true.
You have no idea what the distances are between the two things that they put on there. That's imperfect information.
Or if something has changed since they wrote it.
Has changed, exactly.
Yeah.
You go in there and say, "Oh, I've got a map of the peaks right here." Guess what?
Yes.
Not quite.
So the idea of time being a raid, this idea of limited resources, and you have to be wise with what you're spending, and imperfect information.
Yep.
If you can slide those ideas into your games, I think they can greatly enhance your role-playing game experience. All right, well, that's our topic. Let's go to the chat room for life. What do they have to say about what we've been talking about?
Nothing.
Good.
Jim McClure says he loves chess. Nikki and Kevin Lovecraft are sharing their love for beer fridges.
No, they both have them.
Yeah, they both have them.
Beer fridges are good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're connecting. They're bonding.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we'll just move on along because Phil's not here. It'll be a short show.
Oh, sorry about that. Archmage 1 has said good co-op games can give a story experience, win or lose. Narrative may evolve in the play.
That's true. Time Stories does that all the time. And so does Mice and Mystics for us a lot of times. I don't really ever have that experience with, like, Arkham. Like, I know there's a narrative that can evolve from that, but I never think of it that way. I get that more from Eldritch because it's that world-spanning thing, and there's actually a story that you're trying to... There's 3 mysteries that you're trying to uncover.
Yeah, that one lends itself more towards a story.
Yeah, it feels like a story. It feels like you're actually doing something as part of a Lovecraftian story.
Yeah, Arkham to me always felt like just a beatdown.
It is a beatdown. That's why.
There's so many bits, and in the game's defense, the 3 times that I've played Arkham Horror, we played with like almost all the expansions.
Oh well, I'm sorry.
So there was just tons of bits and things, and it was moderately soul crushing because we just kept getting beat down. It was just a slog.
Yeah. Arkham as a base game is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I never feel like it's a story though, right? Like it feel like it's a game.
Yeah.
But like I said, Eldritch feels like a story.
It lends
every time
itself
I play
towards
it.
that better than
It's got
Arkham.
more of that those pieces to it. Like you have these little cool vignettes in Arkham Horror where when you encounter the cards, because you flip the card and you read it and then you make a choice. Like those are cool too, and those are in Eldritch too. But there's that meta story that's going on because of the mysteries that you're trying to solve. I love Eldritch Horror. I think I haven't played it nearly enough, and I own it, which makes me sad.
I would definitely like to play it again.
All right, so I'm gonna do this now.
Hey, look at all the coins.
Hey, I got a diamond. Here, Tony, have a diamond.
I'll take it.
Yeah. Oh, here, Bob, I got one for you too.
I'll take a diamond.
Yeah, there you go. Well, we don't have as many diamonds as we usually do because Phil's not here, so
Phil brings the diamonds.
Phil brings the diamonds.
They
Constantly spitting diamonds.
They are drawn to him.
They just he's like a diamond magnet.
There you go.
Well, then he never is getting fired because I like diamonds.
You got to keep them around.
I could use a few. First thing is the weight loss challenge. So we're in the middle of November. There's only about 6-ish weeks left, maybe 7, and let's see how everybody's doing. Jared Rasher. Last week he was at 236. This week he's at 232. His goal is 220. He got back on track better than he had hoped, but he's got a looming office Thanksgiving dinner on top of his family dinner. So here's where it starts to get bumpy for him.
Thanksgiving, man.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. Weather permitting, everybody go out for those after-meal walks, he suggests. And I agree with that.
Absolutely.
We're going to have to go out and freeze our butts off after Framsgiving.
Hopefully it'll be not so cold.
Hopefully. Jason Hobbs, he's up to his highest, 215 after game hole, down to 210 after. His goal is 195, but he's coming in late. He did start quite late, but that's pretty good, man. He went from 215 to 210 after we drank all that beer. Oh, man. Good on him. Good on you, Hobbs. Rob Whitaker, his current is 194.4. His goal is 189. He's getting close. Good job, man. Also, is it Whitaker? I'm pretty sure it's Whitaker who has the peanut butter and jelly thing in the Slack Room for Life, which I love that, by the way. It makes me laugh every time.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Bob laughed. Even Bob laughed. Peanut butter and jelly, man, it's a thing.
No, totally not.
I don't know, Tony, is peanut butter and jelly a thing?
I'm pretty sure that's a thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a thing, too.
No, see, Tony, you have to understand, peanut butter belongs with chocolate
Okay.
and only chocolate.
Bob, I can
No.
just turn your mic
No,
off. It's not that
Yeah,
hard.
you could.
Oh, man.
No, because you can put peanut butter on toast, and then you put jelly on toast, and then you take those pieces of toast and you put them together
No,
because they're two great tastes that taste great together.
no, that's chocolate and peanut butter.
I don't. That's not a thing. You don't put peanut butter on toast.
Oh, man. You don't put peanut butter on toast? You don't put chocolate on
You don't
toast?
put chocolate on toast.
Yeah, that's what I thought you meant.
I had him for a second.
You
there.
did have him for a second. I caught you. Don't worry. All right. Randy Farmer, the old school DM. He's at 254.5, minus 2.5 over 2 weeks. A pleasant surprise. Only 4.5 to go over the next 6 weeks, including Thanksgiving
totally
and
doable.
Christmas. Makes this tougher than the math might indicate, though. Go, team, go. Hey, Bob, where you at?
I am holding steady for the second week in a row at 193.4. So I didn't gain, which is a victory for me.
That's
because
true.
I have been kind of going back up a little bit. So yeah.
David Walker, our
biggest cheerleader,
biggest
man.
cheerleader, man.
Yeah.
Proud of how close many of us are. 6 weeks is a lot of time to make progress, to get moving towards goals, even if they are far off, even if they seem unattainable now. Don't give up. The only way to truly lose is to quit. Don't quit on yourselves. David Walker started at 227. His goal was 207. He's currently at 199.5. His shrink goal is smashed. His new goal is coming. He said, I've been succeeding in this with the help of two sources. The Misdirected Mark community has been huge, but just as big has been the support of my wife. Between the two of us, we are down about 88 pounds for the year. My new
Nice.
goal is to make it 100 between the two of us.
Awesome.
Troy Taylor, he's stuck on a number, 238.
You got this, Troy. Don't worry about
Yeah,
it.
you got this. Gilgore, he said, sorry, I can't give a number. I'm still unpacking and have not found the scale yet, because he just moved. Congratulations on moving, though,
Yeah.
Sean. But I seem to always be pulling my pants up, so I hope I'm going in the right direction. I was bad yesterday, forgot my lunch, and had a 3 for $10 special, a spicy tuna, shrimp, tempura shrimp, and a salmon roll. Then I had a cheesecake egg roll. Yeah, that's when I went off the wagon.
Ooh, cheesecake egg roll.
That sounds really good,
Yeah.
actually. PK Sullivan, 238 again. Got to push hard to get to 230 by the end of the year. All right, that is the weight loss challenge.
Keep it up, everybody. We got this. We can do it.
All right, here's something cool that I saw. So Tenkar from Tenkar's Tavern, he had a post that said that WotC is bringing back TSR era modules and print on demand. And I went and looked that up already. So yeah, there's a bunch of TSR era stuff that you can just go get print on demand from drive-thru now.
Nice.
In RPG now. So if you're missing some stuff from your collection, or you really wanted some stuff that you want to print it out, go take a look. I don't think it's all up yet, but there's a bunch of things that are print on demand these days.
I know they've been going through for the past couple of years and slowly putting out digital versions of older WotC or TSR stuff. So they've been slowly chugging their way through it, and it's good because there's a lot of stuff that's out of print, and fans of the old school stuff, be nice to have it out there.
It really would be nice to have it out there. I mean, especially I would like some of those things.
Oh yeah,
especially some of the old modules. Because I'd like to run them as like Dungeon World modules.
Sure,
like they work just as well for that. I mean, there's a giant market, I think, for that kind of stuff. Well, with other things,
sure.
I don't think that's a problem at all. So that's the cool thing that's going on. Let's talk about some Kickstarters that are going on.
Yeah,
City of Mist. So City of Mist, we've been talking about a lot. It's got over 1,000 backers. It's at $56,000. Me and Bob are going to start playing it as an actual play very shortly. We thought we might start today, but we just got time strapped with all the craziness that was going on today because Phil's not here. So there's now social media goals. So I went and liked it on Facebook, on G+, and on Twitter today. And if you get to certain, of course, like social media goals, you get to certain ones, they unlock other things like more stuff in the book,
nice,
more playbooks, things like that, or more the cards that go with them, the logos and the mythos cards. Bluebeard's Bride is at like $91,000. There's like a billion things for it now.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
I think it's kicking butt.
If you get in on the $20 level, you're gonna get so much stuff, and so much beautiful stuff. So I would highly suggest that. Monster Hearts 2 has crushed it all over the place. So that's going on too. That's Avery's newest version of the game, which is it's Monster Hearts. It's about being a teenage beautiful monster and dealing with the fact that you are a monster in this world. Like I said, 51 grand. It's got 15 days to go. It's got it's got 1,700 backers. It's hitting stretch goals here and there.
Nice.
Yeah. I just wanted to touch on those because I wanted to let people know they still existed. This is the one I wanted to talk about a little bit more. Preservant, a story game about survival. So this doesn't have many days left, which is why I'm bringing it up. It's only got 4 days to go as of the recording of this. It's funded. The game is, to start, players collaborate to create the wilderness. It's significant locales and deadly challenges and how the characters are connected and why they traverse this hellish landscape, because this is a game about survival. Throughout play, the characters will confront both the wilderness and each other, haunted by the grim specter of betrayal and sacrifice. It's unlikely that everyone will survive, so people are going to die. So that's a thing about the story game. The game works with any kind of setting, from the arid Silk Road to the vastness of space, so long as there are people determined to pass through an inhospitable environment. And the idea of Preservant is designed to create an entire story in a single session lasting 2 to 4 hours and supports between 2 and 5 players. Since it's a collaborative story game, it doesn't require a GM or any preparation. You'll start creating your desperate journey as soon as you sit down to play. So if you like story games, that is a thing that you should go and grab.
Just to clarify, because I had to look at this like 3 times before the word formed in my head, I believe it's Perseverant.
Sure, Perseverant.
I think that's what the...
I'm down with that.
I'm not 100% sure, but I'm like 99.
So here's a thing that came out, and it's gone crazy, all right? This game is called Dialect. Now, this is a game about language and how it dies. This game launched a little while ago, but it was looking for a goal of $3,000. It's at $104,000. It's got 2,200 backers. So here's what Dialect is. It's a tabletop role-playing game about an isolated community, their language, and what it means for that language to be lost. It's a GM-less game for 3 to 5 people that runs in about 3 to 4 hours. The game's core spark comes from gradually building up elements of language among players, who gain fluency in their own dialect over the course of play. Words are built off the fundamental traits of the community, the pivotal events that have defined their lives, and how they respond to a changing world. Players use the language to explore both their characters and the world by asking what this new language really means to them. A new word is made, the language grows, and the community is tightened. From age to age, the isolation changes, and we see those changes reflected in the language. In the end, you'll define how the language dies and what happens to the isolation. Players take away both the story they've told together and this new language. This was played on One Shot, and Arcadian played it, and so did Senda. with D'Amato, and I think the creator of the game, whose name is slipping my mind. In fact, I'll just go look over here on the thing. It is there was two people. It's the name of the company is Thorny Games. I'm really bad because I didn't go and get the creator. I will bring it up next week when I talk about it again. The game sounds amazing. I've heard it plays really well. Our Arcadian was completely impressed with it. So was Senda.
It sounds fun.
Yeah, like this is kind of one that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Hopefully I'll get in on it. So that is a game I think that people should go take a look at. It's very different. It's very interesting. Tony, what do you think about that?
I listened through the I listened through the playthrough with Senda and with James D'Amato and all that, and it just sounded fantastic. It sounded like the kind of game that I want to play.
Yeah.
Because you're going through, you're constructing your language, and you're the fact that you know that everything doesn't turn out well in the end.
Yeah.
Makes it all more worthwhile.
Ah. Why do you say that?
It's this tragedy kick I'm on, I guess.
Oh, well, I mean, if you like a tragedy, then that's another reason to like this game.
Yeah.
So if you like language, if you like a tragedy, yeah. All right, let's move on to community chatter. So Jason Hobbs, his comment after the last episode. Good episode, fellas. Hanging out with the Sneeze and the rest of the BSers was a hoot at Gamehole Con. Next, Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers feels like looks like a 1E retro clone to me. I know GM Donovan Chaney said Holmes was involved, but from the outside it feels more like first edition. So he's talking about the Holmes edition of D&D, but he says it feels more like first edition. And Hobbs is a big OSR guy. He likes other games too, but that's where he lives and breathes. So it's a good place to think, and it's a good person to listen to about that. Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers is also in the middle of its Kickstarter for its second edition. That's true. It's getting close to the end of it right now. I know it's funded. This time a beautiful hardback instead of a box set. I'd limo it. I don't know what that means. Oh, limo it. He must mean I think limo's a print-on-demand place. Maybe not. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I'm not sure what he meant there.
Could be a typo.
But he's half Luddite. It could be a typo. Lastly, he said, I love mashups. I team Black Powder, Black Magic at Gamehole under the B. Oh, it's I ran Black Powder, Black Magic at Gamehole under the Gaming and BS banner, and it mashes Western and steampunk quite eloquently. Thanks for the show. Hey, what did Randy do?
Oh, Randy put some kick-ass terrain together for a game that if you're part of the community on Google+, you got to take a look. It was, I'm pulling it up right now just to refresh my memory what the game was. It's from the D&D Adventures League, and it's for an adventure called the Black Road. And the terrain is ridiculous. I mean, Randy is...
He's Randy
master.
Farmer,
He's
right?
Randy Farmer.
Yeah.
I mean, he really liked making the terrain for it, and especially running the unexpected encounter with the giants. And I'm sure everybody enjoyed playing in it as well.
Oh,
so.
I mean, as I said before, if I was going to play a Dudes in the Map game, which I'm actually more open to playing that these days than I used to be, I would definitely vote first for Randy Farmer to run that kind of game for me, so I could just live and breathe in the worlds that he creates.
Absolutely. Kudos, Randy Farmer.
All right, so we are cruising through this show today.
I'm not saying nothing.
I mean, it's 9:50.
You know what that means? More after show.
More after show? I don't know. I mean, nobody's going to want to come hang out with us, apparently. Nobody's really asking any questions. So before we get to our super friends of podcasting, let's do some Patreon shout-outs. So Matt Sharp. I don't know Matt Sharp. Do you know Matt Sharp?
I am not familiar with the name.
Matt, thank you so much for being a patron.
Yes, thank you.
Please reach out to us and tell us all about you. We would like to know who you are, and we'll talk all about it next week if you do. Papa Schwick. I still have a bottle of your beer left. I'm going to probably drink it at Thanksgiving.
There you go.
I mean, I'm not sure if it's any good anymore because, I guess beer goes bad at some point. But
it hasn't been that long.
I mean, Gen Con. It's probably still good.
Most of the beers that you buy in the store, quote unquote, had been sitting in a warehouse for months.
That's true, but usually don't they put preservatives in those?
What's the worst that could happen, Chris? How bad could it really be?
Probably not that bad. Not as bad as the night I drank a half bottle of whiskey. Well, fake whiskey, according to some people. Michael Opdyke, thank you so much for being a patron of Misdirected Mark Productions. We greatly appreciate you. Jesse Edmond, thank you for being a patron and also for volunteering to come out and host the show with us tonight. I know, it was just kind of kind of a quick turnaround after being at 2 conventions in a row, but I greatly appreciated you reaching out to me and saying that you would come out, and to the other people that offered their services tonight. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you. And Mirko Froelich, thank you so much for being a patron, and I hope everything is going well with you. All right. You want to hit that Super Friends transition for me, my friend?
Let's give this a shot.
No, not so much.
It didn't do anything.
Didn't play anything.
There it is.
There it went. No, it went.
There we go.
Got the back end of it. Cool. So this is the podcasting Super Friends. So first off, let's start with our show. So Panda's Talking Games, they talked about leveling up in session, mid-session advancement type stuff. And it was, of course, hilarious, like those two are, because, they're goofy.
Yeah.
And they're pandas. Because they were pandas at Gamehole, or at a Catacon. That's the other thing, which if you're a patron, you could have watched the YouTube video because I put it up there for all the patrons. And if you're not a patron, that is episode, I believe, 39 of Pandas Talking Games. And when that pops up, I will make that video live on the YouTube feed if you want to see the pandas in their panda outfits.
Special episode, Double Live Panda.
Special episode, Double Live Panda. And then on Down with D&D, we talked about what's new in D&D, and we've expanded our what's new to include other things other than just what's on the D&D website. And we also talked about the Unearthed Arcana Barbarian. All right, so gaming and BS. I don't have the can you play the train or the motorcycle?
Let me. Yeah.
It's just doing
It's just taking it.
Well, no, it's playing it. There's a motorcycle sound, but it's going boobity boom as
there
it
was
does
like
it.
a Windows chime or something before it.
Interesting.
I could have swore I turned that off.
All right, that's okay.
It's all right.
So this is where we talk a few minutes about what we liked on the last episode of Gaming and BS, at least for me. I did listen to 114. They talked about the chain of command in RPGs. So like teamwork in your place in the team. And it was actually a really good discussion because Sean used to be in the Army, or used to be in the Armed Forces, and Brett pretty much nailed it, like, because he works in corporate America. It's not too different in either place. One's like a little bit more discipline and whatnot, but they addressed the idea of, like, it's a lot easier to do it in a one-shot because people are more willing to fall in line for 4 hours than they are for, like, a campaign. But they're playing Traveler, or at least Brett's group, his Mount Olympus Gaming God group, is playing Traveler, and there's a captain of the ship. And they made a lot of allusions to, like, Firefly.
Yeah.
Because of how Mal was, there's that episode with Mal, for those who've watched Firefly, where he puts Jane in the airlock.
Yep.
He's like, I'm going to space you unless you fall in line.
Yep.
And she's like, fine.
It's my ship. I'm the captain. You do what I say. Otherwise, poof.
Yeah. Those are the things that can arise from problems. And they talked about all that stuff. It's pretty good. I'm not a big chain of command guy in games. I don't really like that kind of stuff. I mean, of course, that stuff usually arises naturally through play, but
it can be a problem because we had a Firefly game and we decided that we needed to have someone named captain for purposes of, we've got a ship. Somebody's going to expect there to be a captain.
It's true.
So we gave someone the captaincy by name, and that player took it and ran with it and was like, I'm the captain, so you have to do what I say. And it's like, no, that's not how this works. We're a cooperative,
Yeah, you don't get it, Cap.
Yeah.
Without your crew, you don't have a crew.
Yeah. So there was a little tension there.
They were actually talking a lot about what happens when that goes wrong. When
Yeah.
you try to space somebody every week, if you try to throw a bunch of people in the brig, you have a mutiny on the hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That just turns into bad stuff.
It really does. It
Plus,
really does.
empty threats don't work either. If you put someone in the airlock and you never actually shoot someone out, it's going to get old and they're going to be like, he's never going to push the button and shoot anybody out there. Like, and they're just going to do their own thing anyway.
That's right.
So if you're going to be that guy, you got to put somebody out.
Well, there's a great quote that I heard from somebody, like a pirate ship. The captain of a pirate ship, like, you might be the captain, but I mean, as long as you keep your crew happy, you're still the captain.
Yeah.
As soon as your crew gets mad at you, you're not gonna be the captain anymore. So that's kind of how that goes. They also put out a bunch of bonus BS episodes from GameholeCon, including the Wizards of the Coast Gamehole episode with Mike Merles, Christopher Perkins, and Jeremy Crawford. They talked about the Volo's Guide. They talked about how their game design and presentation has changed with 5th edition, and how they're more interested in the culture and background and psychology of monsters than just stat blocks and telling stories with them. And how they're going with fewer books these days, and there's a purpose to that.
Yeah.
It also makes all the books feel like events, which is pretty cool. It's a great episode. It's a great panel. If you're really into D&D, I would suggest going and checking it out. Talking Tabletop didn't have an episode this week because they're going every other week. There was the third episode of Satanic Panic, though, their actual play. And then I finally picked up the first episode of the Design podcast that goes along with it. It's a companion podcast that Jim puts out. The first one was about 15 minutes long. Talks about the core mechanic of Satanic Panic and the core cycle of how that game works. It's pretty good.
Cool.
And then there was She's a Super Geek. Tony, do you think you could play it for me?
No.
Okay, never mind. She's a rock and roll play baby, and I'm not gonna sing any more of the song.
Please stop. No, I only have the beginning of the song. I don't have the middle part, or you normally cut to.
Oh, okay.
So
No, that's fine. They played the second episode of Bated Breath with Darcy, which I'm going to talk about next week because I didn't get a chance to listen to it because it dropped really late because, reasons. I mean,
Stuff
we
and things.
all were at a catacon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but that game design.
I
That
know,
game
right?
design, though. That game design,
Yeah,
though.
Dolly Spider. Dolly, what the heck's her name? I can't remember the name of the designer offhand. Tell them about the game, Tony. Tell them how the game plays.
It is a Ghost Apocalypse. It uses Google Maps to where you're driving in the back seat of a car while you're
Or you're walking down the street.
or walking down the street.
Apparently, I haven't read the game yet. Apparently, the game works by you each have a color, and you're clicking through Google Street View, and every click, you're looking for something that is your color, and if something that is your color appears on the screen, then something happens, or X amount of clicks happens, then something happens.
Yeah,
that's
and
how the game
you can never
plays.
turn back.
And you can never turn back.
Yeah.
Yep. It's
Looks
pretty
like
great.
Bated Breath is from Jacqueline Beckwith.
Yes, she's her Twitter handle is something different, but yeah, Jacqueline Beckwith, I think that sounds
That's
right.
what it says on drive-through.
Well,
so.
that's good. I'm glad that's what it says because I'd be completely wrong if it wasn't. I didn't really listen. I mean, I listened to some podcasts this week, but I didn't really listen to a ton because I was out of town, right? And did anybody else got anything podcast-wise they want to talk about?
I'm so non-podcast.
Yeah, I know you are.
I'm
Tony,
behind
you
on
listen
She's a
to
Super
listen to
Geek,
more
too.
than me these days.
Yeah, so I listened through This American Life. It's
This American Life.
This American Life, more downer This American Life.
Yeah.
I listened through. I'm on Startup. I'm like,
After the first 3 episodes, I'm not enjoying the American Eagle guy at all.
no, he's a horrible person.
I'm not enjoying listening to that story either.
No.
Yeah, so I actually stopped listening to it, which makes me sad. I've never not listened to an episode of Startup, but now I am.
Okay. And then the IT Governance podcast is another one I've been listening to because I've been getting into more of trying to make things and break things and break into places and hack things, hack all the things.
Just for fun?
Yeah.
Just for fun?
Yeah.
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically. Just if I wanted to take control of a bunch of Chinese webcams and turn them into a DDoS attack on the domain name servers, and try to take down the entire internet.
I feel like we just got picked up on somebody's watch list.
Yeah. NSA, hi, how you doing? We just got some new listeners. Maybe
NSA
they'll join the
doesn't listen
Patreon.
to podcasts.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
they do.
I'm pretty sure they do, actually.
Yeah.
Wow. Anything else interesting?
The new anonymous feed came out, which I wasn't impressed with.
That's a thing?
That's a thing. They
That's
have an
weird.
official YouTube channel, and I was not very impressed.
Interesting.
Anonymous, I was not impressed with your announcement.
Why would you? Don't say that here.
I'm just making enemies for you.
Thanks, man.
And then
The Misdirected Mark
Franco-
podcast does not condone anything that Tony says.
Yeah, the views of the Misdirected Mark podcast do not reflect the views of Tony Cinta.
Well,
Tony Cinta, who lives in Buffalo, Williamsville, New York.
Williamsville, New York. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's about it as far as podcasts go.
All right.
A bunch of YouTube. Oh, you know what? I'm going to put a shout out on here for Heather Feather. Finally is back on YouTube after several months of being away. She is big into the ASMR scene, which you guys have no interest in.
What's ASMR?
Creepy whisper videos.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's absolutely
That's a thing?
like no. The question is it sexual? And play that game for the rest of forever. Is it sexual? That's the question.
Is it?
Kind of.
I'm
Not
sure
really.
for someone it is.
Kind
'cause,
of,
you
not
know,
really,
different
maybe.
strokes for
I
different
feel
folks.
like once you put creepy on it, it ceases to be that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure that's somebody's.
You would be surprised.
I'm going to say I'm sure that's somebody's kink. It's not my kink.
Yeah.
It's not intentionally creepy, but you need to listen to it with really good headphones.
Yeah, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Because it's
Maybe.
like
Not really.
tingly feelings all over your head. No.
Tingly feelings all over my head? No?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, with that, what's going on in the chat room for life before we leave?
I don't know. People are talking. Oh, pen testing is fun. Kevin Lovecraft, you're my favorite. Other than that, Adventure Zone. I started listening to Adventure Zone recently. Super good things they do. That's very cool. From Ardent Gameric.
Yeah, I mean, the Adventure Zone is a really good podcast. I actually quite enjoy it when I listen to it, which isn't very often. But when I get around to it, I listen to like 3 or 4 of them, and I have a good time.
And they followed on topic. They talked about chain of command and that kind of thing.
Oh, interesting.
But that was in between Tom Flanagan yelling at people, telling them they should go to QCC, which I totally agree with.
I agree with too. So should we just like move on to the after show then? Like get out of here?
I think we should.
Well, we can give them a hint of the after show of what's like. We can just throw it on the feed if you want to do that.
What do you mean?
I don't know, like add like 10 minutes of after show into the pre-after show.
The pre-after show. Or we could just go on. I think we're just going to go on.
We could just move forward.
We're going to get to the after show. So everybody, thanks so much for listening.
Yeah. Hey, if you're free on Tuesday evenings at 8:45 Eastern, which is 6:45 p.m. the Queen's time.
You're welcome, Senda.
Yeah. Come and join us live on Twitch, where you can chat with other listeners in the awesome chat room for life and ask us questions.
Or not.
Or
like
not.
Today.
Or you could just, chat amongst yourselves,
Chat
which is
amongst
always
yourselves.
cool too.
That's fine.
Because we love it when you guys are having fun together.
I agree. If
Yeah.
you cannot make it to the live show, you can check out our podcast each week wherever you get your podcasts, and you will never have a show that's this short again as long as Phil is on it. I'm just saying. And take a listen to some of the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as Down with D&D, Threats from Gallifrey, Advantaged Insight, Pandas Talking Games, and Cypher Speak with Darcy and Troy. You can and should also check out some of our brother and sister podcasts, She's a Super Geek, Talking Tabletop, and the associated shows that go along with that, The Shrieker, Knights of the Night, and the always amazing and spectacular Gaming and BS.
After you've listened to us and you want to complain about all the heinous things that we discussed today that people probably shouldn't do, you can leave us feedback. You can reach us directly at chris@misdirectedmark.com.
That's me.
That's him.
Phil at misdirectedmark.com.
That's me.
Bob at misdirectedmark.com.
That's me too.
And we're going to route all of those to Tony at his home email address.
Yes.
You can also go to our Facebook group,
Yeah, that place.
Misdirected Mark Word Scramble. You can get us on Twitter.
Can you do the roundup?
I can do the roundup.
All right.
At DNA Phil.
Uh-huh.
At Robert M. Everson. What's yours, Tony?
At second the second, SCNDTHE2ND.
And I'm not going to spell Sendas because that's a whole nother thing.
Idella Mithland?
It's spelled how it sounds.
Yeah.
Spell like a Wojahowitz. See, there was a shit. Never mind.
It's easier if you just type in Senda.
Yes, exactly. And then there's at Misdirected Mark.
Yeah.
And of course, at The Light 101, where you can get all of your PMJ music all day long.
That's right. And I have been listening to a ton of PMJ while I've been writing lately.
Absolutely. And then, of course, there's our fabulous G Plus community as I bang the microphone stand again. Bang,
It's
bang,
300 members as of today. I'm sure
Nice.
I have to
300.
go and cull out some of the bots, but it was 300 today.
Hey,
Yeah.
bots or not, 300 is a good number.
Yeah, right? So if you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MMP. Patrons get access to the after show, which will be coming up and be going on for a while after this, our pre-production show notes, musical parodies, and the Pandas Talking Games bonus outtakes, plus any other special releases that we feel like throwing up there. Like I said, the aforementioned video of Pandas Talking Games live.
And there may or may not be another musical parody somewhere in the works.
Oh,
What?
yes. Two.
Big cast.
I hear two.
Two of them?
Well, I mean, if the Major General... whenever
Oh,
it's
well,
done,
yeah.
There's
I
that.
forgot Palcom was working on that.
Yeah, that's right, because Wayne's the man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, since there wasn't a rock and roll play baby, we'll just move on
Sort
right
of.
to the end. Oh, yeah, sort of. Thanks, guys. I mean, okay, whatever. It's fine. I can't sing. That's good.
That's
Let's
all
go to karaoke sometime. I'll just destroy Tony. I mean, unless he's singing Dick in a Box, then, I'll lose.
Is my dick in a box?
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
We out.